This conference will now be recorded.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 1 is requests or comments from the public. Please remember, if you do have comments, to start with your name and your address. You'll have 3 minutes. When we're winding down, I'll give you a quick heads up just to let you know. And then just as a reminder, so no one thinks we're being rude, we can't respond and interrupt your 3 minutes, but we're happy to listen to any comments you might have.
Good evening. My name is David Strite, live in 1396 South 104th Street, Edwardsville. I wrote and rewrote this thing several times because I know I have 3 minutes and I time myself and I keep going over, so I'm going to try to be quick here. Does anybody know the name of Mary Jane Cannon? Anybody familiar with that name? I know you can't react. I'm here to speak on her behalf, okay? There was a gentleman by the name of Sergeant Claiborne Cannon. He fought in the Civil War. He was an African-American, fought in the Civil War in Louisiana. After the war in Louisiana, he had a baby girl and named her Mary Jane Cannon. And after the war, him and his family moved up here to Edwardsville in search of a better life, better opportunity. Tragically, Mary Jane passed away for reasons we don't know why. It's kind of lost in history, but passed away at the age of 15 or 16. And Sergeant Claiborne Cannon went to bury his daughter. And he couldn't bury her in the city cemetery because they didn't want the blacks buried with the whites. So he ended up burying her on a rocky hillside back in the woods, which happens to be next to my property. It was 3 years later that land was actually set aside and designated a cemetery, Stony Point Cemetery. And I understand the city's been working with the church that also borders that property, trying to come up with some sort of access. And my understanding from what was said, I think the last meeting that the talks kind of fell apart, they couldn't come to an agreement. And I guess my question was, that maybe you can answer later, is how far apart are we? I don't know what the city's asking. Is it the city that's being cheap, or is it maybe the church owner that is being, extravagant with the cost? But I also keep in mind, our property values skyrocketed and the city's benefiting from that. I think it's only fair that the city's paying fair market value for whatever that land is worth, right? Just something, to consider. And we have this, I know we can't be held accountable for the sins of our ancestors, right? The people before us, but the condition of that cemetery is a sin today, right? And that's something we can take care of. So I just encourage you guys to don't give up, keep working. I'm going to keep talking for Mary Jane, okay? Because I feel like she wasn't treated with human dignity. There's a whole bunch of people. There's 2 Civil War soldiers back there that deserve our respect and honor, and they should be treated as equal as our other city cemetery. So thank you.
No other comments? We'll move on to item number 2, which is the consent agenda. There are 4 items on the consent agenda: approving the minutes, statement of bills, calendar of 2024 meetings, which are amended, and then item D, approving the Tri-City Fire and EMS mutual aid agreement.
Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items, but I'd like to pull item D to be tabled for later discussions.
So approving A, B, and C.
Yeah, approve A, B, and C and pull D.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Malat and a second from Councilman Bishop. Will the clerk please call roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Adcox,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malat,
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
When do we want to discuss that?
We could maybe put it down at the end of the meeting, just a little discussion about it.
Just 7B.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Moving right along to item number 3, which is conduct a public hearing to consider amending fiscal year 2023 budget and take any necessary actions subject to the hearing.
Mayor, thank you. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, what you have before you is item number 3, the background information. And what we're asking today is that you conduct a public hearing to amend the 2023 budget. These items and their amendments are necessary under state statute. It's when we exceed the budgeted amount, and therefore we have to then amend the budget again per the statute. As you might see that, notice from the background information, the sewer fund and the solid waste fund exceeded their 2023 budget, and therefore we have to make, by state statute, an amendment. The other two are discretionary and more for, though we're amending them officially, more for our internal recognition of what's happened to those particular funds over the year. Somewhat informational, but we will be formally amending those budgets. So the sewer fund will start with that. Statutory required because we budgeted $853,006, and the amendment would be $998,399, a difference of $145,393. And as you see from the background, I'll draw your attention to it. That overage is due to unexpected line repairs. That's the sewer fund. Those are large lines deep in the ground. And when they break, they have to be repaired, and that's our responsibility. Expenses related to the Call Valley Lift Station purchase and installation, which is continuing. I like things in boxes, and he just brought me a box. Welcome.
It's not processed.
Yes. And then we had a one-time, this is important, one-time transfer of $60,000 to the solid waste fund, which is the next one we'll talk about. The solid waste fund is just $36,595 over budget, but I just mentioned that it required a $60,000 transfer from the sewer fund to the solid waste fund, which, if you look at the history, we've done that a few times over the years. That's kind of a typical transfer back and forth. This was unexpected, and that unexpected is because that $36,000 plus was driven by payments that were due in 2022. And as I did provide you with some background information where you saw the actual statements. At one point, there was a $50,000 plus 53,000-ish bill to be paid. We're paying portions of those. We just don't understand. We did that for a relatively long time, and those back payments owed were due, and they were due. We paid them in the middle of the year, and then as you see, as I gave you that information, that we went to the zero past balance. We're current and up to date. We absorbed that entire amount in this particular year. Therefore, we've overspent. We cannot have a negative balance, and without that transfer, there would have been a negative balance, and that's not lawful. So that explains that piece of it on the solid waste fund. And again, the fund-to-fund transfer is fairly common. Okay? Both the technology fund and the special sales tax fund, they didn't exceed their expenditure budget, but there was a lot of going on that I wanted to remind you of, and that's why I have this as more of a discretionary, not statute required to be amended, but I wanted you to see it. First and foremost, the technology fund, we authorized some time ago to then purchase the server upgrade, all hardware, software, and all labor related to that, with the designation that $95,000 would be transferred from the CARES Act funds to that technology fund to reimburse it, to make it whole. And that we did that, and still you can see that there's still a fund balance of about $24,000 plus in that particular fund. I just wanted to make sure that you're seeing that I transferred this money and authorized that, but that's based on council action from the past. And then the next piece, the special sales tax. We didn't quite generate the revenue that we thought, but we did expend less. I wanted to point that out. And in the audited information, we were nearly $18,000 in the positive of the ending balance of that particular fund. And I wanted to point that out as well, so you'd be informed. The proposed changes do not require any additional taxes or fees. Therefore, in closing, I ask that you accept the amendment proposed. I'll stand for any questions if you have any. Oh, I'm sorry.
With the-
We need to conduct the public hearing
Right.
at this point now that you have the staff
Okay.
report there.
So we'll need a motion to open the.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, please, we entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Mayor, I make a motion to open public hearing concerning the budget amendment, 2023 budget amendment.
Second. We have a motion from Councilman Malat and a second from Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Adcox.
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malott,
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes. And so now that the public hearing's opened, if anyone from the public would wish to make a statement regarding the budget amendments, now would be the time to do that. There being none, I'll hear a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second. We have a motion from Councilman Malat, a second from Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Adcox.
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malott,
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes. Okay, and so now we'll need an action, and that would be
Yes.
either, if we'd like to approve the budget amendment, we'd hear a motion for that.
Mark, is there ways that we can prevent having to do that at the end of the year?
It's
Like
fairly
throughout the-
common.
Throughout the process.
Yeah, it's fairly common. For example, let's take the sewer fund very quickly. Big pipes, very expensive, way down in the ground. If something breaks, pumps, we've heard about, pumps have to be rebuilt, purchased, fairly expensive. They come out of this particular fund. And in addition, we have reoccurring expenses in the sewer fund, which are personnel related. So those are always occurring. So we're always having expenditures. And even though we have a cash revenue, cash balance in that particular fund, we set the expenses. And if they just go over even $1, you're required statutorily to do this amendment. So you will do this, at least the sewer fund is very typical historically. I look back and we do that pretty regularly. That solid waste, it just depends. If we budgeted and not expected some sort of increase, or we've asked for more, the big containers during our cleanup fund, and that drives the price up a little bit. And therefore, again, $1 over, you're required to statutorily make that change or those amendments. So preventing the amendments is underspending or spending what you budgeted. That's how we would do that. It's just not typical of those particular funds.
Is the cash balance on hand going to be affected by this, or is there a way of not having it be affected by that?
Well, when you move money around, you spend money, you've got less cash. You have to have more revenue coming in. We've had a little bit of revenue stream slow down. So in one instance, and I apologize, that stand by. The solid waste account is probably going to end up with about $400 total. We only did an amendment just to cover the expenses that we had, but it does generate revenue, right? And so we'll be able to pay our bills and that sort of thing. And in the solid waste, I'll point this out. We sent to specials over $44,000, meaning special sales or special tax assessments against the property taxes because of unpaid bills. If you recall, July-ish, I discovered that there was a pretty substantial amount of unpaid bills related to both the sewer and the solid waste account. And so we made an aggressive policy to start enforcing to make payments. And and we've had people come in and say, hey, what's this special on my bill? Just happened recently. And it didn't register at first, and then we investigated it, and it's something the city put on that particular house because they hadn't paid the bill in 5 years. Here's a perfect example. The person living there doesn't technically own, it's a relative who owns it. It comes in the relative's name, the bill does. So they're like throwing it in the trash, 5 years of that. So it's $1,600 of trash and sewer, that sort of thing. So we're getting these uncollected things. Now, write-offs were uncollectible. We have an estate or something somebody's passed or moved to a different country, that sort of thing, is about $5,500. So you're looking at 40. Now, had we collected $49,000, that's what we did not collect in that fund, we would probably be more than whole, but we didn't. And you should prepare that 50,000 uncollectible may stay steady the next couple of years just because of we're going out there. Tax season is here. People are selling homes. They're doing things. And we have offset programs, the set-off program. We have other ways, but the first thing we do is assign a special through the tax authority through the county, okay? And so people will see that on their tax bill, and hopefully our collected debt will have a higher percentage of collections. That's the hope, but we have to be vigilant this next year about having that policy. So I hope that, yeah, we will have some fund balance. The sewer is much healthier. The solid waste was budgeted kind of tight, conservative. We pay this much, we're billed this much, and that hasn't come to fruition. We have to have a pad in there. May require some at the end of next year of this fund balance transfer, that sort of thing, from maybe the sewer, maybe the debt, that sort of thing.
Are we doing anything like knocking on doors, making phone calls? I mean, that's a large amount of money we're short on, and that owed to the city for this service.
I will say this at a higher level. There's a formal process. You have to be notified, that sort of thing. Give opportunity then to pay the debt. If you don't pay it, there's probably some statutory language, and then we have a form and that sort of thing to submit to the county to put it on your property taxes. So that's as aggressive. We can go knock on a door, but it may not be the person who lives there that owes the money. It's more of a rental or a transient. We have a lot of that in the sense, or that unique situation where we have an estate, somebody moves in that's a relative, the bills are coming into that person's name, maybe they're not getting them anymore, that sort of thing. So there's some, but we only have to notify the owner. To include, if you rent, we notify the owner at some point that these bills are past due, and therefore we're going to collect on it.
But we should know with each household on which ones are in that instance that you're talking about, correct? I mean, we should know if the owner's not living there, and if it's a rental, we should have that information one way or the other, either by knocking on the door, making a phone call. I'm just wondering if, the information that's being sent out, I mean, it's like you're saying, it's listed as special. I mean, we just need to make sure we're reaching the right people, the owner, whoever that may be. We need to make sure that they understand that this isn't getting paid. Either the person living there is not paying it or the homeowner's not paying it. I think we just need to make sure we're getting, this is a lot of money, right? A lot of money. And we need to make sure we're just getting the information to whoever it is to make sure that they understand that this is a outstanding bill for this service, especially if it's 5 years. Is that what you're talking about? 3 to 5, or that's maybe a different scenario? Or
that scenario in particular was actual, and it was a 5-year bill.
Okay. Well, I think we just need to be somewhat aggressive on something like that, because obviously there's a disconnect, whether with us or with them or somehow, some way. Let's just make sure, we're talking to the right people and make sure we can try to get that taken care of.
I'd like to mention also that didn't we just take on the responsibility of a raise in fees from the waste management
We did.
for the residents, and that's going to be coming due to the residents before too long?
Yeah, and it reflects, I think we went from, and I apologize for not having
About
depth of this.
$5, I think.
It was 13% increase. I know the numbers, that is the increase.
I don't know that
But we only budgeted 5% to cover it in the budget.
do the residents realize that bill's going to be going up.
Yes, and I would presume.
And we
based
had
on the
taken
information,
care of that, which
it
probably
has.
a lot of the money that we're losing by not getting it paid.
I understood we went from 65 gallon to 95 gallon, somewhere in there, on the buckets and that sort of thing. That caused some of the increase, but there were increases that reflected about 15%.
Need to get aggressive about getting the bills paid, I guess, or cut them off.
Well, those are the
Not a
options.
good thing to say up here.
I think we're being statutory compliant with the laws governing how we can collect this debt. That's what we're doing.
Chief, is there a certain amount of time that goes by that, say their trash bill's unpaid, that we are not picking up the trash anymore? Like
The
you said,
cutoff-
the barrels.
I think we've been gentle with that, quite frankly. I'm sure there's a policy in place, and I can get you that answer in writing to everybody. I just don't know exactly how we're doing that. Things have changed. I know that's not to be an excuse. It's certainly a reason, because the policy of collecting this just started. And some of these are 5 and 6 years. We've been doing utility billing for quite a long time. And little by little, when you're $357,000 money you're trying to collect on several accounts, it's daunting for the staff, and they're learning. I'll repeat this: the front staff is here less than a year on average. right? So this is something new to them. There's been a lot of changes, but as far as, I don't like the word aggressive so much, but we need to have policies in which we are fair and firm for all of the users, whether you've moved out or not, that we try to use the collections that are at our disposal and try to shore up these accounts. I'm reading here there was a 13% charges increase from 2022. Already we've experienced that. And then in addition, the bills we weren't paying them properly. Okay, so what happened in 2023 is you took on extra 13%, you only budgeted 5% increase, right? That's what you budgeted for. And then in addition, you paid an $11,000 of, which is about a half a month's of billing, in addition to all the billings that you received. So it's about $22,000 a month. And we had to pay from 2022 just over $11,000. So that's where you're getting into this, that account is we need to manage it, quite frankly. And I appreciate the words that we have to do a little better, and we do. We just need a solid policy. We want to be fair and firm, but we want to be compliant with the law. I'll leave it at that.
And I think it would be beneficial if, and not to be harsh or anything, but if somebody's trash doesn't get picked up, they're going to notice and they're going to call us. And so that'll kind of bring attention. Oh, guess what? You haven't paid the bill, or that sort of thing. Or if we're picking their bins up, they're going to notice and will notice. Like, it'll just be more of a accountability, and it won't go unnoticed for years if their trash is not being collected.
Absolutely. I think there is a policy. I just don't want to quote you a wrong number if it's 90 days or 180 days or whatever it might be. So let me give you that answer. It'll be in our contract, that sort of thing, and our policy. And so I'll get that for you.
Mark, I appreciate, your sensitivity on this, and, kind of want to go in and follow the law. And I know we have to do that, but to me, if it's 5 or 6 years of delinquency on payment, again, there's a disconnect, and I am not afraid for us to go into this, into this particular case or cases, aggressive. I know you don't want to go there, but I think, again, with it being a 5-6 year disconnect, and either they don't know that money's owed, which I'm hoping that's what the deal is, or if they do know, then that money, the longer it goes, it's going to be more money and harder for them to pay if they know it's, out there. So I think we need to be aggressive in some cases, and you know what I mean? And you can use that word loosely, but we need to be more proactive, let's just say it that way, on some of those.
Yep. And that's our policy moving forward. Again, these are things just discovered. This is policy just implemented. And again, we've been doing utility billing for several years now. So I think moving forward, we'll have a better collection rate than zero.
And you can follow up with us maybe in an
I will.
email on the policy, or if we need to update that. But to keep us moving forward, I think we're still waiting on a motion for the amendment of the budget, unless we have more questions regarding that.
Did we have a motion in a second, Chantal?
No, we did not.
No.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the amendment for the fiscal year 2023 budget.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Shriver and a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Adcox,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Lamont,
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes.
Moving on to item number 4, as per resolution 2023-12, conduct a public hearing and hear evidence of a potentially dangerous, unsafe, or unfit for human use or habitation structure located at 250 South 110th, and consider resolution 2023-15.
Mayor, thank you. We do have some action here, but the first thing I want to point out, if you look at that agenda memo, the very last paragraph, I want to point this out publicly, in order not to bias what we're trying to do, the words were left out, but it reads, staff recommends the governing body adopt resolution 2023-15, finding the structure at 250 North 110th Street to be dangerous, unsafe, and unfit for human habitation, and set the date for the structure to be removed. Insert this, please, or repaired by the date determined by the governing body. There are 2 choices that you'll have here, in the sense if you make a determination, okay, that is to repair or remove. I want to make that clear. Okay? Second order of business is I'll be conducting the interactions and that sort of thing, but our sole purpose here is to determine whether there's reasonable indication that the structure at 250 North 110th is a dangerous, unfit, unsafe structure. And then how to deal with that particular determination, which would be then, as I mentioned, repair and or remove. In addition, in the resolution that you'll be considering is 2023-15. In that resolution, aside from your determination if there's a reasonable indication that this unsafe structure exists, is that you will be establishing a timeline. Staff is recommending that that be completed when you make that motion, if you so choose to do so, February 12th. We would figure a 60-day, a 45-day, that sort of thing. This aligns with our meeting in February, that first one, and that should be plenty of time for a decision on the parties to be made. Okay. With that, Mayor, I would ask that you entertain a motion to open a public meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'm sorry, public hearing? Thank you. A public,
So we have a
Hearing.
motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilman Scott and a second from Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Adcock,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malott,
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes.
Okay, if anyone from the public would like to speak on behalf of the public hearing or during the public hearing for resolution 2023-12 regarding the property located at 250 South 110th Street, now would be the time to do that.
Mayor, and after this, we will open with staff presentations of the evidence that you can consider. Okay.
Gary Carpenter, 11030 Riverview. I want to use one of Councilman Bishop's things when he said, talking about the old fire station up here. I'm tired of looking at it. I mean, it's been sitting there for over 10 years now. I don't know how many exactly, but it seems to me like, I think Munson still owns that property. It seems to me like he's done enough damage to this city without leaving an eyesore up there. And then, you know, at least he could have done was take care of it, board it up, or do something like Stevenson did, mow the grass and keep it nice looking. That's on the main entrance, one of the main entrances coming into our city. And I think it's just sit there long enough. There's nothing else you could do with it, I don't think, besides tear it down.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mayor, we'll call Lieutenant Brad Todd. Provide some evidence, please.
Do we need to close the public hearing?
No,
or
it's,
we let it go and then?
yeah,
Okay.
I said, I misspoke, public hearing. We're having a public hearing and they can have comments like that. That's okay. But so that, because the purpose here is to, is there a reasonable indication that this particular property, the structures are unsafe or undangerous? So that's our intent here. And then after we close this portion, you'll go back and consider that resolution of deeming it such and then setting the time frame. And I propose that be for February 12th. So first of all, Lieutenant Brad Todd, would you introduce yourself, please?
Bradley Todd. I'm a lieutenant with the police department.
As a lieutenant with the police department, what's your role?
I'm over at an administrative commander, so I'm over investigations and codes.
Code enforcement?
Yes.
In your role as a code enforcement supervisor or manager, do you have opportunities to investigate code violations and or review work products related to code violations?
Yes.
And as such, have you had opportunity to review reports and or investigate the structure at 250 North 110th Street, Edwardsville, Kansas?
Yes.
And in that investigation, did you have opportunity to receive and review any reports of violations related to that particular piece of property?
Yes.
And in your role as the manager of the code enforcement, have you had opportunity to create any documents that show expertise and the plan for code enforcement on structures that are unfit?
Yeah, I created the process map for how we handle dangerous and unfit
What's
structures.
the title of the document?
Dangerous and unfit structures.
I hope I have that, folks. They state my math sometimes. It's counting until they say. Thank you. So I've just handed them the process map that you created as the manager of the code enforcement office. Is that right?
Yes.
And you have a code enforcement officer or a CSO, community service officer, that works under your stead. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is he involved in investigations of complaints as well for code enforcement?
Yes.
And do you have any knowledge that he went onto this property and or from afar investigated complaints related to 250 North 110th Street?
Yes, we did.
Did he produce any reports?
He did.
Did you review those reports?
I did.
And in reviewing the dangerous and unfit structures process map that you developed, number 1, I'll call your attention to that. And would you agree that we're focusing on 1 through 4 in this process and not the full
Yes.
1 through 9? Is that correct?
Yes.
And in number 1, the report says you're to present a report of an unsafe, unfit structure to the governing body.
Yes.
And did you do that?
Yes.
And how did you facilitate that report?
That would have been resolution 2312.
2312. You have that resolution? Is that the resolution signed by the mayor?
It is.
2312, Mayor, for the record, it's already public record. You signed 2023-12. Now, in a sense, what does this particular document do?
It's just, they set a public hearing for hearing about, it sets what we're doing today.
What we're doing today? And what date was that supposed to happen?
It was supposed to happen November 27th.
And was that publicly published?
It was.
Is this a publication record?
Yes.
Okay. And that's also public record as well. It's been published as required. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So did that hearing occur on November 27th?
Did not.
And can you explain why it didn't happen?
The meeting was canceled.
Formally canceled by the city council, is that correct?
Yes.
And so what did that happen to the hearing that was supposed to take place?
Moved it to today.
Okay. And so were the representatives and or the owner of 250 North 110th notified of the meeting change?
Yes.
And how did you notify them?
By phone, and I sent them a letter.
Did you send any certified mail as required by the ordinance to them notifying of their hearings?
Yes.
Okay. You had phone call conversation with the representative and or owners?
Yes.
And after you indicated why you were calling, what was their answer?
Well, they understand the city's position, but at this point in time, they're not willing to put any money into the property.
As a lieutenant, the manager, an investigator, and within your chain of command, you have the community service officer and you read reports. What did all of that indicate investigative wise to you about this particular piece of property?
That's an unfit structure. It's a dilapidated building that it needs to be torn down or fixed.
So did you and or the community service officer enter this structure?
No, the codes officer did not.
So you investigated from afar?
Correct.
And your assessment from afar was what violations existed?
Obviously, the tall grass, tall weeds in both buildings are just in disrepair.
And these are pictures that are being portrayed are pictures from afar.
Correct.
And now we're into the inside. How did we get inside this if you can only investigate from afar?
The police department recently took a criminal damage burglary report at the property. When they went there, there was damage to the door and it was ajar, so they went inside, community caretaking. And this is just snippets from their body cams that were on.
So the officers at the time believed they had exigent circumstances to enter and make sure there was no occupants, or why were they inside?
Make sure nobody's inside there, nobody's injured, nobody's hurt. It's a known vacant building, so there shouldn't be anyone inside of it.
And your history with the organization, has this building, this structure always been vacant?
No, not when I first started, but I'd say since all that development up north, it's been vacant, so 4 or 5 years.
So what are we looking at when we, are you scrolling through that? Just keep going to go to the interior. Lieutenant, tell me what's the source of these pictures?
So that's one of our body cams.
Body cam, and then you have a still shot of it?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
Just a
the
snip
next
from it.
one, please. The same for this one as well?
Correct.
That is the interior of 250 North 110th Street, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, next. And that is as well, same question?
Yes.
And that as well?
Yes.
There too?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. All from the body camera. Exigent circumstances based on criminal activity, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Cleared the building, found no one, but you found this state. How would you describe the state of the interior of that building?
Disrepair, just a mess. They've clearly probably had wires ripped out of there. It's in bad shape.
In the state that it's in, could you live in that? Is that livable? Water, utilities, do you know any of that?
I wouldn't think so.
It's your opinion that it's probably not
In its current
fit
state,
for human.
Yeah, correct. In its current state, it's not fit for habitation.
In the next piece of your investigation, so schedule a hearing, that's what we've done. We're having that hearing now. The notice of hearing, we've said that you've made notification both verbally and through certified mail, is that correct?
Yes.
And now we stand here and who else would be involved in the investigation of a structure that may or may not be dangerous and or unfit?
The fire chief.
Fire chief, and did you get some sort of invitation to him to go investigate this particular property?
We did.
And did he go and do that?
He did.
He did. Did he provide a report?
Yes.
Counsel, he'll stand for any questions you might have for clarification.
I might have missed it. Did you have response from the owners?
I've spoken with representation of the company that owns the property.
Are they local or are they gone somewhere?
They're out of Minnesota.
They're out in Minnesota. And then did I hear you say that they said they weren't willing to put any money in that?
Correct. Not at this time.
Anything else?
You know, I always ask the same question. Are they current on their taxes?
I don't think they had paid the last year, the last I looked. But before that, I think so.
For the record, do you know the name of the company that is either the representative or the owner?
Compass Commodities.
Colonel Bay. He's also known. So the man you spoke to, his name is Rob, is that correct?
Yes.
Rob. Okay. Thank you. We'll call Chief Tim Whittam. Thank you, Chief. State your name and your role, please.
Tim Whittam, I'm the fire chief of the city of Edwardsville Fire Department.
Do you serve in any other capacity?
I'm also the fire marshal for the entire city, overseeing the fire code.
In that capacity, did you have opportunity to inspect this particular piece of property at 250 North 110th Street?
Yes, sir. On September the 25th, Tom Haas, the CSO, had sent me an email requesting me to do an investigation on the property.
Okay, and so you went and did the investigation
Yes, sir, from afar.
from afar, so you didn't enter the building?
No, sir, I don't have exigent circumstances to set foot on the property, so I have to make contact with the property owners or investigate for common driveways or streets.
And we had no permission to enter it from the property owners?
No, sir.
Investigate from afar. Did you happen to draft an investigative report after investigating from afar?
Yes, sir.
And you sent that report to the police department?
Yes, sir.
Is this the same report?
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you. Can you describe for us some of the details of the report your investigation revealed?
Besides what Lieutenant Todd talked about with the overgrown grass, trees, and shrubs, there are broken and open windows, broken and open doors. There are sagging portions of the roof where we already started to fail. We have a roof where the asphalt shingles have completely worn away to where we have just exposed tar paper and decking that presents the wavy approach to it. We have some cracked foundations and what appears to be some sliding in there with cracks going along door frames and windows. That's indicating that the foundation has started to shift and the structure shifted.
Good. Are any of these deficiencies, dilapidation, however you want to describe it, are a safety hazard for anybody who would be inside that particular structure?
Yes, sir. With the amount of possible foundation cracking that's going on just from witnessing from afar, it indicates that the house is shifting. So our stance would be right now is if we were to go to that location for a fire, we would make a rapid search of the structure. Due to firefighter safety concerns, we would pull out and fight from a defensive approach because of the unknown stability with the roof and the foundation structures.
Okay, just for clarification, if there's a fire reported at this particular structure, you would take a proactive entrance into that home to make sure that there's no one inside there, if it's possible. And then you would take up a defensive posture in fighting that fire?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Is there a driveway that you can drive up
No,
and
sir.
down? So accessing that particular property with a fire truck may be a little difficult or not?
We would be staging it off of 110th Street.
So staging to clear off the street, how far back do you think that house is?
That's approximately 170 feet.
170 feet? Okay. Anything else you would add?
Just when I did the initial FAR investigation, we still have what appears to be power and a power meter going to feed the house. And like I said, the open doors, and then just what I witnessed here with the interior pictures from the body camera shots that I did not see prior to the night. There are now more concerns with the busted in drywall that would allow for rapid fire growth on the inside. That would definitely sit there and cause more concern because of the exposed structural support members.
So if no action were to be taken, and this goes 1 year, 2 years, what state would you find that particular house? What's your opinion that the state of this house would be fire related, safety related to human?
This structure is going to continue to sit there and fall apart and dilapidate even further without any corrective action.
You saw broken windows, trusses, it looked like foundation coming apart.
Yes, sir.
And you did all that from afar.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? And you would take a defensive fire stance should there be an active fire?
Yes, sir.
He'll stand for any questions from the council.
I think you covered it.
Mayor, I'll call on a representative from the property owner or the owner themselves to provide testimony.
There being
I
none.
don't see them here. Mayor, our sole purpose is to establish whether or not there is a probable or reasonable indication that this structure is dangerous, unfit for human habitation, or unsafe. Unsafe to not only right there on the property or to others who might wander there, and or, as you heard testimony from the fire chief, it's certainly a safety issue for our fire department and EMS response should they have to do so. And that is our testimony. We'll close this hearing. If you would, Mayor, if you'd call question.
So we'll need a motion. If no one else has any public comments, then we'll hear a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close public comments.
One question. Might not be right. Who pays for the tear down of it? How does that get paid for if we move to destroy the building?
Yeah.
And what happens to the property after that?
Well, the property, okay, so should we, and it's really the next part we're talking about, okay? Well, we can talk about it here. I think it's probably right because they have a resolution which answers these questions, but that's okay. So it's good that we can have an open public. I'm just making sure. But in a sense, the answer is if you should determine there is reasonable indication that you should pass the resolution to have it repaired, right, require it, or have it removed, require it, then if they do not comply with that order, then there are these other things that you will see in this process map that we will have the authority to do. And we've done them in the past. Should it come to fruition that the city has to then order and direct from itself to have that torn down if the owners are not cooperative, and that we do that, we assess it back to them. That's how that works. And the condition of the property is that if there is a basement or any of that, no different than, I call it Lloyd's Automotive, is being leveled to it has to be returned to a usable state, a reasonable state. So we would require that when we hire the demo person, that they do it. If they hire the demo person, that they do it that way as well. It would be all leveled out.
I was talking about the financial impact.
Financial impact, of course, we will pay, and we've done that before, and we would put that on the assessment. So if they do sell the property or it's repossessed or something happens to it, we have our stake, right? We'll hopefully see remuneration of that assessed fee.
Thank you. I'll second the motion.
We have a motion from Councilman Scott and a second from Councilman Malat to close the public hearing. Will the clerk please call roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Adcock,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malott,
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
And so I believe, Chief, and correct me if I'm wrong, now is when council would make a determination if we'd like to approve resolution 2023-15 for, let me get the verbiage exactly. Right, and I covered it up. Oh, here it is. To set the date for the structure to be removed or repaired by the date determined, which would be February 12th, 2024. And so we just need to make sure we're saying repaired or removed
Correct.
within the motion, and then the date February 12th, 2024. I would suggest that if they're already saying they're not putting money into it, that would cost money to repair it. So
It's not,
What, and this may be a better question for legal, but means the document was posted in the Wyandotte Echo, and then the governing body sets the public hearing for November 27th, which we didn't have that meeting, but means it was in the Echo on that date. What kind of legality issues, if we move forward with this amendment or proposal with these dates being, wrong? If the homeowner comes back or the building owner comes back and says, well, I was going to be there, but means you change the date or we cancel that meeting, it almost feels like we need to do this again, unfortunately.
And I appreciate that, but I think we've established in our testimony that we sent a certified letter changing the date. There is no council meeting on that particular day, therefore they cannot have a hearing. So it was rescheduled for this particular date. Not only they were phone notified, and you heard the testimony, second of all, we sent it by certified letter. They've had plenty of opportunity, and we have communication with the people who are in charge of that, and they have said, as you heard from the police officer, that they don't intend to participate. I think I'm speaking on common sense terms here. As a layperson, I think we've done our due diligence, because you can't have a hearing on a meeting which you don't have. And therefore, it was published. They knew about that meeting. We did our due diligence as a city, certified mail, conversation, and they've chosen not to be here. I think
So what exactly did the homeowner say then to our officer about that their interest in this coming to the public meeting or to the public hearing?
Okay, well, we're getting back into his testimony, and I didn't write it down. So, in the sense that from what I got from the officer is that they talked to him, they told him what was happening. They indicated that that place was probably going to be repossessed by a bank, that they are distancing themselves from the previous owner, and that they had no, and I'm not quoting, but I'm trying to summate, no interest in any of this. I don't know how else to say it.
No interest in providing any funds to work with this building.
Repairs.
Basically.
Correct. I mean,
What I heard.
it's good money after bad, and it sounds like to
Yeah.
me. So we're paraphrasing. I can't speak for them. They weren't here to testify.
But I'm all for doing what we have to do to either get it repaired or demolished. But I just want to make sure we're doing everything that we're supposed to, not something come back and bite us, later.
So, I think your instinct is a good one, because I was actually looking that up while we were talking, because, similar to the revenue neutral, law, if you mess up the hearing type stuff, each law is different as far as what it requires regarding public notice and notice to the individual. You're not being recorded. So, KSA 17-4759 is the general ordinance that allows our specific ordinance series, which is ordinance 3.07 series, to be in existence. And relevant to that is it says that after an investigation, the municipality shall issue and cause to be served upon the owner, every mortgagee of record, and all parties in interest in such structure, including persons in possession, a complaint stating the charges. Such complaint shall contain a notice that a hearing will be held before the public officer or the officer's designated agent at a place therein fixed not less than 10 days nor more than 30 days after the serving of the complaint. That the owner, mortgagee, and parties in interest shall be given the right to file an answer to the complaint and to appear in person or otherwise and give testimony at the place and time fixed in the complaint. And then if after such notice and hearing, the municipality determines the structure is unfit, yada, yada, yada. But I think this hearing is not necessarily considered a public hearing, but it's a hearing, like a court hearing, that gives the due process rights to the owner. And yes, it was published and given public notice, but the due process rights inure to the owner, who was given actual notice of the change of date.
Yeah.
And so if public notice had been required, I'd probably say you probably need to republish. But in this event, you've you've had service, both informal and formal through certified mail, as well as actual service through testimony that by the officer providing that service that they did receive notice. And so I'm comfortable moving forward. There is no case law that basically unwinds something like this, at least under the Chapter 17 statute. But the absolute safest course of action would be to republish and to hold a hearing, but I don't see in the statute a requirement that the public receive notice of the change.
I think the problem that I have, or not have, but just concerned is, just like what they told our officers that they don't want any part of this property and they're not going to put any more money in it. And they said it's going to go back to a bank or loan agent, whoever. Well, we gave a certified letter to that person that doesn't care one lick about the property. So I'm concerned we're going to tear something down and the bank's going to come back looking for something, honestly. I've seen it.
Well, the statute requires notice to the mortgagee as well. So maybe best course of action would be to table this unless there's a reasonable certainty that there isn't a listed owner.
When they sold it to Compass Commodities, they would have had to pay off their mortgage first in order for them to satisfy that lien to go on. So Compass Commodities they should own it outright.
Yeah, they should.
They should.
Because it sounds like their investment.
Yeah.
We're trying one more source here.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah, you just look at the tax records.
I just want to make sure we're covered completely.
Sorry, I didn't anticipate the mortgagee question, but.
Junk.
Access to quite
I'd buy junk and I wouldn't buy that.
I mean, there's, I see homeless people living in it, especially in the winter.
No other lien holder that you can see?
I'm not seeing anything now.
Lieutenant Todd, when you did your research, you couldn't find anybody that was listed other than just
I mean, I think you could proceed with this February 15th resolution today, and if for some reason something comes up between now and your next meeting, you could vote to rescind the resolution. But if it's owned outright, I think you've satisfied all the notice requirements of the statute.
I'm going to sympathize with the adjoining landowners up there on their concerns where they have a net next door to them. And therefore, I'm prepared to make the motion to adopt resolution 2023-15, finding the structures at 250 North 110th Street to be dangerous, unsafe, and unfit for human habitation, and set the date for the structure to be removed or repaired by the date determined by the governing body, which is February 12th.
Do you want to say remove, or do you want to say?
Remove.
Are we
or
supposed to say
repair.
which one, or we give them the option?
I think you can pick, I think if you found that there's reasonable indication that it should be removed, you should say that. Then they can counter if they should so choose to say, we have the money to repair it, but there is a city ordinance, part of this, which indicates if it's over 50% of the value, you still have to demolition. So
I was going by what you said earlier to make sure you add that into this.
I just wanted to make sure it was on the record that we considered both.
You have to give us the option.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So which one had you want me to rephrase?
Should we entertain a motion for approving resolution 2023-15
Correct.
that the structure at 250 North 110th Street is dangerous, unsafe, and unfit for human habitation, and set for that structure to be removed on or before February 12th, 2024.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the way you want it.
I think that, does that work?
Yes. it
Yes.
suffices.
Okay.
I'll amend that. I'll agree with that.
Second.
As stated, a second.
Yes.
So we have a motion by Councilman Malat
Sorry.
and a second by Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Adcock,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malat,
Yes, I'll
Schreiber.
try and keep better notes.
Yes.
I'll just rewind a lot.
I'm just going by what he said.
Okay. So we're good. Moving forward to item number 5, which is consider the adoption of ordinance 1070, an ordinance amending Appendix A fee schedule of the Code of Ordinances and thereby creating Article 85.003 Fire Department mitigation fee. And so we'll start by a staff presentation on that.
Hey, Jeff, would you grab that microphone for Tim? Oh, you want to be up there? All right, go ahead. Come on. While Tim Whittem, Fire Chief, settles in at the podium, giving the presentation. But essentially, we're asking you to adopt ordinance number 1070. This will be a fee for mitigation of resources that are used by the fire department in their response to any fire or medical emergency that we don't already charge for. Now, Chief Whittem will explain that, as you see in the first part of the recommendation, these are for individuals that, again, pass through the city. It's very transient. We have about 97,000 cars a day. So if you think about it in vehicle crashes and things like that, where they're not from here, they don't live here, but they demand the resources, we have opportunity by setting up this fee schedule, a new thing, and adopting it in such the way as it's presented so that we may be able to bill, say, for example, the insurance company of a motorist. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Tim Whittem.
Thank you. Mayor, council, like everybody summarized, before you tonight is to sit there and consider ordinance 1070, which is creating a new fee schedule for establishing and implementing the program. The charge of mitigation fee for the deployment of our fire and emergency services and non-emergency services by the fire department for common incidences to which we respond that involve non-residents of the city. Let me reemphasize that again. Non-residents of this city. As we know, our city residents pay taxes that provide for emergency services. However, we have 97,000 vehicles per day that travel through our city on K32 and I-435. We also have several non-city residents that sit there and participate in activities down at the lower head dam of the river on the Call River. During the past several years, we've made several incidents, or several responses to these types of incidents that have caused wear and tear on our vehicles, several man hours of time that we've spent on these scenes, as well as prices for products that we've used for recovery of oil, vehicle fluids, and everything else that is on the roadways that we have to sit there and reestablish and clean up before we sit there and open the roadway back up. Response fees and mitigation fees are nothing new that have been charged in the fire service across the United States for about the last 15 years. They are, however, starting to become a new process here in the metro area. Chantal, do you have that slide that shows the breakdown from some other areas? Okay. So as we have proposed, we have looked at some response fees that we feel are acceptable to what some other agencies are now starting to do in the metro. However, there are a few services that are charged. This is not widespread, and it seems to be based more upon what the budgets are of the communities. We do not have large communities that are sitting there picking these up yet because they have a substantially larger budget that is operating from. However, we are a smaller community. Our budget strings are tight. Right now, we have proposals from Fire Recovery USA, which is the main billing company. They have got the contracts for Sherman Township and Leavenworth County, along with Reno Township and Leavenworth County. Both those departments serve I-70, Jefferson County Fire Districts 3 and 10, and DeSoto Rural Fire District, which covers a portion of the northern portion of Johnson County. And then in Missouri, we have Central Jackson County, which is Kansas City, which covers another portion of I-70 and Inner City Fire Protection District as well. Our prices are the same across as what Fire Recovery USA is proposed for these other jurisdictions, which are now applied. During this process of adopting this ordinance and creating this fee structure, there is a contract to be signed in and the process of identifying in our ordinance where we've established this in an open meeting, where you as the governing body are agreeing that we are going to start billing for mitigation of these services, and that it has already passed through our legal review process as well. And the attorney, from what I'm understanding, has not seen anything with the contract that causes any concern. Now, as we said before, non-residents, again, in motor vehicles are going to be the primary people that we bill. 99% of the people that we have responded to in traffic accidents in the last 3 years of the data that I've pulled from we respond to are non-residents in the city of Edwardsville, i.e. these are people from Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, Lawrence, Johnson County. They're involved in accidents on our roadway. They're utilizing our services and our products, and they're not paying the taxes here. All of these fees, especially for the motor vehicle incidents, the level 1, level 2, and level 3 rates are already covered under people that have automobile insurance. It is covered under primary causes under their riders on what their their automobile insurance covers. So all it's going to take is us a matter of a few extra minutes of us documenting the insurance billing information, gathering it in our reporting, and the billing company will bill those non-residents as acceptable to sit there to recover our costs. Most of the times we're using several hundred pounds of oil dry throughout the entire year just on a simple traffic accident that does not require any extensive amount of extrication. And as you get into hazardous materials responses and the water rescues, you can see that the price tags are getting larger. Those are more time consuming and more manpower consuming operations. In closing, I will take any answers or questions that you have, but it's staff recommendations that we allow City Council to approve Ordinance 1070, amending the fee schedule, establishing this new subsection, implementing this program to charge for the fees for services for mitigation rates for the deployment of our services, and to allow the city manager to enter into an agreement with Fire Recovery USA to bill for those services that are identified. If there's no questions, or I'll stand to answer any questions we have at this time.
Chief Witham, we're going to hit you with this. How would this work when you're responding to another accident in a different city or different?
We don't bill.
Huh?
We don't bill.
You won't bill?
No, sir. This is only for responses that originate in Edwardsville that we respond to in Edwardsville.
Okay.
So if we are going mutual aid to any other jurisdiction, we cannot bill for that response.
Just for clarification, we're talking about a mutual aid agreement that might be in our minds right now.
Yeah.
If that ambulance goes from the city of Edwardsville to Kansas City, Kansas, and we transport a patient, we get the bill.
That's covered in a different.
That's a different one, but just if you're thinking,
yeah,
it might be confusing. This particular piece is only in our jurisdiction.
Okay. That helps. Thanks.
What if they don't have insurance?
If they don't have insurance, they just like a non-payer for the ambulance bill. They will end up getting set off into collections. If they don't pay through the collections process, they'll get put on the tax set off.
Do you know roughly, or does the police department know roughly, what is the percentage of vehicles that do not carry insurance that are just roughly?
Yeah, pull them over to NASCAR.
Sometimes I don't know.
I can just tell you
Just
from most of the responses we've been on when we're standing there with the police officers, they're getting insurance information back because they're already putting it in their reports. So I'm going to take a sophisticated guess and probably say we're close to about 93 or 94% of the ones that we've been on have got insurance that when the troopers or police officers are asking for proof of insurance on the scene.
Well, this is an incredible program, or is this going to be cumbersome for the fire department for the billing piece? Is this the way
A whole
you
extra
presented
2
it, you
minutes.
acted like,
A
right,
whole
you
extra
acted like
2
it
minutes.
wasn't.
I mean, we're talking 2 minutes of report time. So
No extra staff, no extra.
our RMS is already set up to capture it, has been set up for years since we went over this new software. We've just not captured it before. All we have to do is retrain the captains when they sit there and gather the information to take that 2 minutes to reach out to the police officers and say, I need this information, or we gather it from taking a picture of that insurance card right then and there, and it automatically fills into the CAD or our RMS or our record management system, and then the billing company pulls it right from there and sends it directly to the insurance.
Chief, would you just elaborate about the billing company?
So the billing company being, I just had it right there on the tip of my tongue. Yep. Fire Recovery USA is a sub-party of our current EMS billing company, EMSMC.
I thought that was important to iterate that we're
So-
already working with these folks.
Right.
So they already have access to our RMS. So they're just going to sit there and pull up the report. They're going to sit there and see that this resident is a non-resident based off of their address. Then they will draft up their billing report, send it to that insurance company. And that insurance company, 100% of the time when they have it, writes that check because it's already on the rider and says, here you go, pays it, goes directly into the account. And then what we would have is the electronic fund transfer that we send over to the finance director, and we pay a portion, which is 6.5% of the billing, just like our EMS billing is currently.
Where would this money go? I mean, does it go
Goes
back
back
into
into the general fund.
general fund? Okay.
So you would see an increase slightly because from what I understand with my talks with Mr. Mathis, it would just be reflected right in the general ambulance fees structure we already have. So you're talking about a bump of anywhere, I don't want to put a price tag to it, but you're going to be seeing a bump in the ambulance revenue fee structure.
But I'm sure we'd be able to track that at the end of the year, find out how much money was put back in because of this. I think this is great. And this is the first we've ever done this.
For
Brand-
here in Edwardsville, it'll be the first time I've ever done this. This is not
Yeah.
the first time I've done this in other jurisdictions.
Yeah, I think this is great, good stuff.
Chief, is this covered under liability insurance? So if it's a young person or an older person with just liability car insurance, is this covered as well?
Depends upon the insurance carrier, what they have for their liability. Some of these smaller carriers that are the cheaper versions, like the General and the Safe Auto, is going to be iffy on it. The higher brand, Allstate, Safe Hands, State Farm, the majority of those on their liabilities have these carriers already on there. It's the same as the towing bill. It's already on the riders for those type of insurance policies.
Will we have any sort of a cash payment option for folks if the insurance doesn't cover it, or are they just going to be?
We can set that up with the billing company once we sit there and go to that. If they want to sit there and do that, we can always give them that option, just like we do with the EMS billing. It's just easier always to go with the insurance first, because usually by the time that the insurance gets the notification from the billing company, they process the check, made the electronic funds transfer, and it's done and over with.
And then if it's a 2-vehicle accident, are we charging this to both vehicles or just the one at fault?
We would charge it to both vehicles if they're both non-residents. If one is a resident, they are paying for our services already.
So if our resident runs into somebody else, then we're going to charge them for our response?
No,
The non-resident.
non-resident.
No, but if our resident runs into a non-resident,
Yeah.
then the non-resident's getting charged.
Right.
For clarification, this is a no-fault state. Law enforcement, nobody determines who's at fault in an accident. There could be a violation of the law, like run a stop sign or something, but we don't determine the
We don't
fault.
determine fault.
The purpose here is we go to an emergency call. At that emergency call, you are from Edwardsville, you're already paying taxes. That's kind of how this is set up. We're not billing you this. The other person who was involved in the accident needs the ambulance, needs the fire, needs extraction from the car, that sort of thing. Those would be billed to them or their insurance company.
And we're charging for the ambulance already. I guess I'm just thinking through like how this would affect somebody, say an older,
We still retain the right of,
aunt driving through Edwardsville and she gets hit by somebody and has liability insurance. So she has liability insurance because she is already broke and she gets hit and now she is paying a bill from, I'm just trying to think through the other side of that. And then on level 1, is this provide hazardous materials assessment and scene stabilization, is the most common on the billing level, but level 2 is if they actually have to clean up any oil spills, fuel spills, things like that. So is level 1, are we charging the $584 just for an assessment? Like if we show up to the scene and we charge it?
usually on the level 1 was just well more than just the assessment, because we're already cutting battery cables. We're shutting down portions of the lane of the roadway. We're already dedicated to probably 15 or 20 minutes that we're on the scene. It's not like we just pull up, oh, here you go, we're there for 2 minutes and we're pulling off for the $500.
Okay.
So the majority of the time, by the time we get a call to this scene, we are already obligated to 15 or 20 minutes of our on scene time. We have to sit there and obligate to making the vehicle safe to sit there and be towed off the scene. So a lot of times before we even get into a large amount of fluid cleanup, this is going to be probably a gallon or two of total fluid spillage would sit there and be classified as a level 1. There's going to be a small half a pound of kitty litter or oil dry. We're going to sit there and classify it as level 1. It's when we dump the radiator, the battery, the oil pan, gasoline. We have to use several bags of oil dry, sweep up a bunch of plastic and everything else. We've got a 30 or 40 minute time is going to escalate it to the level 2 side. So we're already committed to that time that we're on that side of that roadway by the time we sit there and get to level 1. So we've already committed a truck that's at risk of getting smacked by another vehicle. We've got personnel operating out in the roadway at risk for getting hit by another vehicle. We're already operating in there. So this is not like we're just pulling up 30 seconds later and they're getting a bill for $500 we're pulling off. Back to your original question. We also reserve the right with our residents now on ambulance billing. If they can prove need, we can set up in a payment plan or waive portions of what the bill is if we sit there and they can determine fiscal dire straits.
Is there a situation where there would be a car accident? Say somebody's driving by and they say, oh, this car just hit the other one at the stoplight. Everybody's okay, but the 911 is called to dispatch someone out to check it out because a passerby saw it. Is there a situation where if you guys came to check out the scene, but everybody's okay, are they still getting charged the 584 or is that?
If everybody's okay, the vehicles are drivable, there's no damage report that has to be done by the cops, it has to call for a tow. There's no bill just because we showed up.
Okay.
This is where there is damage that is causing a police report is usually the parameter.
Okay.
We get calls that all of a sudden it's a 2 mile an hour, I backed into somebody at the Dollar General, does not garner for me to sit there and bill $584 on. Like I said, there's a common sense approach to it of what's going to sit there and classify. Most of the time, these small fender benders in parking lots, we're not going to sit there and classify requires a bill, even though we get calls on them. They strike the concrete pallards at the gas station. We're not going to sit there and generate a report. These are most of our vehicle versus vehicle collisions on K32 and 435.
Chief, I got a hazmat question here. That plus 381 per hazmat team per hour, if it's a serious incident with like a tanker truck, there could be, several people involved. Should it say per member on the scene? Because 381 an hour, that ain't enough. If you've got people in level A's, backup, decon, and all that stuff going on.
No, because the average hazmat response is $12,000 an hour for a hazmat team, from my experience with them.
Right.
Most hazmat teams are either paid for by state funding on those scales, or they're going to bill for their services through other applications. So that's why we do not have billing any higher than that portion of it established in this, because we're not sub-billing for the hazmat team. So an example would be if we make a response out here at K32 and 435, and we call Kansas City, Kansas hazmat because we have a 7,000 gallon tanker that's rolled over. Kansas City, Kansas Fire Department still has their legal obligation that they can bill for their response separate on top of ours.
I'm just saying if we have to use a lot of our product before they get there and stuff, I just think it seems a little low to me.
It is, but we're not in that capability of having those levels of suits. We're only at the awareness and operations level, so most of our capabilities and our disposables are going to be covered by that 381 cost.
And is there a reason why we can't put this, not the ambulance one, but just this, into the equipment fund, for emergency equipment, but, police and fire, is there a reason why we couldn't do it? Instead of just going straight into general fund, but dedicate this to that fund or something?
The best approach would be that we account for this money coming in, and then we do a transfer to that capital equipment, municipal equipment fund that we created some time ago this year.
This would be a great way to fund that thing.
One more resource to diversify that account. Yes.
Yeah.
And if that's the wishes, we can certainly do that. We do that. Again, we'll like this time of year when we're doing some of these transfers and shoring up budgets, we can certainly do that.
We don't need an ordinance for that though, do we? We just do
No,
it.
no, no. That
We
would
do
be
like
a
we did at the
policy.
beginning of the
It's
meeting.
financial policy. It's a financial body here. I mean, you're the policy body. We would just say, hey, we're going to transfer 20,000 into that particular account, but it'll be coming and credited just like the ambulance fees right into the general fund revenue.
Oh.
Okay. That's how it'll be reported.
So Chief, with Fire Recovery USA doing the billing, how much effort are they going to go to, if someone's delinquent on a bill?
Right now, our delinquency rate for them on the EMS side is after 180 days, they get submitted over to collections. And then after another 180 days from that, they're sent over to state set off. So we are no more than 365 days after they have not made their first 3 attempts to pay the bill, then they are in state set off. So we are within a window, but now, mind you, it still takes 3 bills and spread about 30 to 45 days apart on those first initial 3 bills.
Yeah.
So we are about 18 months from time of service till they are in state set off.
Wow.
Well, and again, I'll remind you, our billing company's in the market to make money. So it's their policies. That's the way they do business. And so far, we don't disagree with that. I'll also point out that, again, the majority of what we're dealing with is insurance related. This will be, some of these will have the opportunity, just as we do now. We have the opportunity to say, hey, don't do that. Don't offset. Don't collect on this particular one. It's just not worth it, and or the circumstances are changed. And the billing company does all the work and related to any payment plans, that sort of thing. So we're shifting that over to them. That's how they earn their money.
Chief, I'm always going to have an off the wall something to say, but I'm going to say 98 and Riverview, a bad car accident, automatic dispatch has been approved by us. 6 goes down there. You're off somewhere else. Who gets the money then? If KCK responds?
If KCK responds and there's no bill generated from it, it's only if our trucks make the call, and only if our trucks make the call in our city.
If you show it's theirs?
Say again?
I say if they show to the accident first, and then you show, which in the automatic dispatch, I'm understanding that the commander would change to the city. Would that mean that this is, like I say, I'm going to come up with off the wall stuff, but
This would not pertain, because it'd be the same as if we go into KCK and make the call, we cannot bill for it. If KCK would recover, we need to separate the 2 thought processes here first and
Right,
foremost.
and that's why I say I thought.
All right, because you're talking about the possibility of only maybe 60 calls a year. If we remember the last data we talked about with the automatic aid, to this is about 70 to 110 times a year that we're already making these calls ourselves in our city.
Chief, and the simple answer is, this is the service provided. If we don't provide the service, regardless if it's in our jurisdiction or somebody else did it, right, we don't bill for it. So if they could go to that scenario and be relinquished, command back to them, and then they provide this service, and then they could bill for it, right? But they cannot do that in another jurisdiction, because this is an ordinance specific to the city of Edwardsville.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I got you. I'll try and clear it up in my head.
Yep.
It's your job to do that, and it's our job to say, yeah, do that. So, and I like that part of it. The other thing I was going to ask was, how much of an increase is this from what we're doing right now?
We're not doing anything right now, so this is an
We're not
increase.
doing any, this is
No,
total
sir.
revenue.
This
Brand
was
new.
something we had brought up in the
Brand new.
budget talks back in August.
Thank you. That's it. I'm a little slow sometimes. Right.
I think this is awesome. Great job, Madam Mayor, Council. If there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 1070, creating a fee schedule for establishing and implementing a program to charge mitigation rates for the deployment of emergency and non-emergency vehicles services by our fire department.
Second.
Who wants to claim it?
This is the tiebreaker.
We have a motion from Councilman Scott, a second from Councilman Bishop. Will the clerk please call roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Adcox,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Maud,
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, if we can follow, just keep records on this going through
Yep.
the year, and it made me feel a whole lot better about it when we were saying level 1 is like police report driven, just checking on somebody. I think that helps
That's it.
significantly, but it would be good to hear how many of these are level 1 and level 2 in the end of the year report.
Good. Yes.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. Next up is level 6. Consider the adoption of ordinance 1071, an ordinance amending section 85001, emergency medical services fees of appendix A, fee schedule of the code of ordinances. And we'll hear the staff presentation now.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Chief Whittam is going to stay right where he's at, and he says he doesn't need a drink of water. But he's going to present on, this is an addendum of fee increases to the already established EMS fees. So he's going to present on that and make a recommendation.
Sean Thal, if you want to go ahead and pop up the next slide there. Mayor, council members, before you tonight is again the annual renewal or look at our set ambulance fee schedule. We do this yearly to sit there and look at what our rates are compared to competing rates again in the metro, and from time to time to sit there and look at what the fee services are, as there have been recent updates to both the Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement rate. Upon review of these changes, staff has made the following recommendations in the changing of our fee ordinance for EMS responses. The number of adjustments are recommended to match with the national billing rates set by Medicaid, Medicare rates, as well as most changes involved as charges related to the treatment and transport of sick or injured patients. A summary of these updates, as you can see, we've got our current rate listed in the far left corner and our proposed rate changes that will take effect upon passing of this ordinance amendment for the 1st of January. Most of our BLS non-emergent and emergent rates are going to go up by $57. Our ALS 1 rate for both non-emergent and emergent rates are going to stay the same. Our ALS 2 rate and our specialty care rate is going to go up $84.44. Our treat and no transport, this is where we provide treatment, but then they refuse to sit there and provide transport. An example of this may be issuing some glucagon or insulin to a diabetic, or sitting there assessing somebody who's complaining of having an asthma attack, and we give a breathing treatment, they feel better and we sign off. We have used some sort of medical treatment, made them feel better, but they do not require transport. We're increasing that rate from $150 to $200. This rate is also what we charge for our blood draws we provide to law enforcement when they sit there and apprehend somebody for a possible DUI and they have a court-ordered blood draw. And then our loaded mileage rate for a patient transport is staying the same at $13. If you look at the comparable prices that we have, Bonner Springs, Kansas City, Kansas, Johnson County, Medac, Kansas City, Lawrence, and Jefferson County, you can sit there and see that we fall about the average between Kansas City, Kansas, Johnson County, Medac, and Lawrence. Now, the Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri both have an ambulance subscription rate. So they have an annual buy-in to where you sit there and pay an additional rate to sit there and ensure that you do not have a medical bill that shows up after what you're billed to your insurance or your private pay. We do not do an ambulance subscription rate. They supplement some of their ambulance billing with that. However, we are comfortable and confident with our EMS MC billing that's there and manages ours, Bonner Springs, and Jefferson County's rates that we are acceptable for us by the billing company. We are low. They would rather see us be higher, but we also are understanding that 64% of our patients that we transport are Medicaid and Medicare. So our payer mix is not strong private pay or private insurance. So that's why we have kept our bills to where we are getting that acceptable rate where we're at. These bills are sent to any resident or non-resident anywhere we make a mutual aid call to, whether we would go to Bonner Springs, which we have done for several years, or potentially to Kansas City, Kansas. We will bill whichever patient we are going to this rate through our billing company. Without any further changes, again, this is an annual review of the fee schedule where we make modified changes with the anticipations of Medicare and Medicaid rates being changed. And other than that, we are recommending to the council that you approve the amending the section of A5001 with ordinance 1071, adopting the new proposed rates that we have set forward. At this time, I'll accept or answer any questions council may have.
Thank you for sending the comparisons, and that helps me just to
That was a great
look
question.
from the year before and learn. And the subscription information, because that's not common knowledge.
Chief, I'm sure you have a reason, but I just would wonder what the $84.44, why not just make it 85
Or 84.
or 84?
Or 84. Because I looked at what the average bill was, and
Yeah.
the average bill come out to that. In reality, if I would sit there and go back and look at what our average ALS2 bill was that the insurance didn't pay and what we actually technically billed should be somewhere around $1,900.
Yeah.
But this was the average bill of what was paid back with the insurances when we were done with all of our scope of care. Work that out. We do not itemize bill our billing for specific drugs or anything else. And like I said, that was just taking on average whole of what our rate bill is what's paid back by the insurances. And that's how we come to that number, and just says, here you go.
I do agree with rounding down that zero. The math is a lot easier.
It's cleaner.
We can modify it and
It's
round it
cleaner.
down.
Yes.
I'd round it up.
I mean, I believe we could round it up at their discretion with the change in the ordinance when you adopt it and just make it an even number.
There's no further questions or comments. I'll make a motion to accept ordinance number 1071, amending section A5001, emergency medical service fee schedule of the Edwardsville City Code of Ordinances, and changing the ALS to all and specialty care to $84 even.
Now that would be the change. So I'd say that it's $12.35, that it moves from $11.50 on ALS 2 to $12.35.
Oh, I see.
That would be the round up.
Oh, my,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the change would be 85.
right.
And specialty.
If
Yeah.
you're okay with that, I can do the math down too.
Oh, well, sorry, I'll correct that to 1235.
12.35.
I second that.
We have a motion from Councilman Shriver and a second from Councilman Scott. Will the clerk please call roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Adcox,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malott,
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes.
And with that, you authorize me to sign the contract, and that contract has been vetted legally as you heard. I mean, on the previous one, I'm sorry.
Good job.
So, that was item 7. We've added kind of a 7B.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
pulled D from the consent agenda for additional discussion on the Tri-City Fire and EMS mutual aid agreement. And were we just wanting some more information?
So
Yeah, the
do
reason
you want
I-
to do item 7 first, Mayor? Then
Did
go
I
to that.
skip 7?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
No,
I
that's all
just crossed it right off my
No, we're
list.
here.
and moved
We're here
on.
as a team.
Trying to save that money.
Sorry, guys. Yeah. Well, I skipped
Couple
it.
100,000.
Consider authorizing city manager to enter into an agreement with Tyler Technologies for upgrades to the existing finance and court software, as well as adding project management to the suite of software applications.
Mayor, thank you. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, you heard the recommendation, the background information. Let me go back a little bit of our recent history where we discussed at the budget preparation timeframe about using the ARPA kind of CARES blend money to upgrade software systems. Specifically, there was a lot of mention about the financial software system. Specifically, that doesn't go near as far enough. And that money was suggested $200,000 to $250,000. And as you see from the background here, is that there are 3 software upgrades, enhancements, purchases that I'm proposing for less than $200,000. That would make a world of difference in our efficiency and effectiveness of service delivery to our citizens. We'll start with the financial software piece. Let me give you an example. A journal entry needed to be reversed. It was reversed and it repeated it 30 times. The software that we're using is called Fund Balance. It's a Tyler Technologies somewhat recent history purchased software. It was made by somebody else at the time, but it was fairly common for our size and our capabilities to use that particular product. It predates Phyllis Freeman. You know what I'm talking about? And so that, as you know, it's been around a long time. That has served its purpose. I'm not to belabor it, but we have no confidence in the reports that it generates. Our accounting manager, Medhat McKean, is frustrated every day because I ask him 10 questions because I doubt the information, and he doubts it as well. So we've managed to figure out how to do things, but it's so outmoded, so outdated, it's so frustrating. So we need to update that. It doesn't keep an accurate accounting. It's not easy to fix things if there's an error. It's not easy to download things. The software we're proposing is a much enhanced by Tyler Technologies. They'll enhance this product. They'll migrate the data. They'll do everything, the training. It'll take 12 months. And that particular piece, I'll just fast forward to that, is $75,272. And at that, it's a bargain, quite frankly. It's a very popular piece that they offer. They offer many more, but this fits our size, the knowledge, skills, abilities of our people. And we think it's going to be a great integration for citizens to work within utility billing, to pay bills, to extract information and do those kinds of things, to write an invoice automatically in the computer, not by hand and or type it in, and that sort of thing. So it's a world of difference. We've seen the demo. Hands down, it was very popular. We wanted it yesterday, by the way. We'll move on to the court software. And I'm proposing all three of these because they integrate with each other, and it's time to make this a full integration, especially with the finances, okay? Especially the court. The court is taking in $400,000 plus on an annual basis. That's, over the last 5 years, that's jumped up. But no matter if it's $200,000 or $400,000, this is cash and electronic payments management that do not automatically integrate into our financial software currently. If we then approve this purchase, we will upgrade. They will upgrade to their import software. It will directly tie into the financial software. So when they do take a payment, they push a couple of buttons and it's already allocated to the right accounts, to the right funds, and there's a receipt, and all of this stuff is done there. And all of the other materials, such as the dockets and the dispositions and all that, will be integrated. And it can be integrated because they're somewhat associated accounts and that sort of thing. And so they can have that done as well at the same time frame as that we're implementing the finance software. And we want that time frame to be about 12 months because you don't want to do it before the first of the year. And there's reasons for that, for accounting purposes, that we want to go to a brand new system by January 2025, okay, to include the court software. It's a different team. They'll work together and they'll get those things done. The system we have is for smaller courts, but understand, Edwardsville, when they say smaller courts, they don't think of a docket of 400 people a month. They don't think of that. They think of Lake Quivira or some, it has 30, 40 tickets written in a month. It's not us. And so that's a little outmoded, antiquated, that sort of thing. And that municipal justice suite that Tyler Technologies offer, their quote was $60,849. Okay. So the next piece is the project management software. In addition to some of the frustrations that the software of the finance software offers, we have no project management software. And in a conversation with the mayor, just off the cuff, I said, do you remember the reimbursement resolutions that you've passed in the last 24 months? And really, you don't. And neither do I. And I sat right over there listening to those things and seeing them on the board. But these resolutions are, we pay now to get reimbursed later for projects. So we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars that somebody has to keep track of. Where'd you spend it? What's the project? Who's assigned to the project? What's the progress of the project? All of these things we have none of. They are scanned documents. scanned to the computer system, the network, in a folder that's called Project X or whatever it would be. And then in that 93rd Street, let's just use that for example, 93rd Street project, it's probably in 6 folders. And it may be misspelled because it's prone to errors, that sort of thing. What reimbursement schedule is there? What money did we spend, right? Who's responsible for the next phase? When is the phase out of that project, like the completion? Do we go back there in 2 years and inspect it? And the answer to those questions is yes, we do. And the only reason I remember that is because I looked at it today in that schedule, but it took me probably 2-3 hours to just query one thing about one project in there. And I have individuals in here who can attest to that because it's just not something that we thought about, right? And we have so many projects that we've done and that are moving forward, and what are the benchmarks? And what public works individuals are assigned to these things that are not these bonded projects, these big road. So what schedule did we go on to then patch a street? What's the next one that should be? Okay, we done stuff in the fall, but what are we doing in the spring? And the only time you see it is right here. There's no way to query unless there's a spreadsheet or something. And then some of that information, that intellect, right, goes away with the people when they go away, period. So when you get new eyes on it, you're thinking, holy cow, where do we find it? So very frustrating. It takes forever. And some of it's hard to, we've done a lot of things with bonds, things with roads, purchases, that sort of thing. All that would be incorporated at the touch of buttons. As you know, if you work with computers and software at your work or whatever, you know how if it's a good product, it's efficient, it's effective, and that's what we need. So for under the 250,000 ARPA funds, we can come in with $121,000. And I will mention that the suite for the project management software was extensive. It's too big, it's too expensive. So I had them customize it down that better fits our needs and what we would use. There'd be so much we wouldn't use because we just don't have some of that engineers on staff, that sort of thing. So in a sense, they're retooling and getting that. I said we're absolutely not going to consider anything over 60,000, not to exceed. And they can bundle all of this and make that numbers work. So I'm proposing to you and asking that you approve these 3 software upgrades for $196,121. And the reason there's no competitive bids, I mentioned in the background, is that over 10,000 we have to have a competitive bid, but there's an exception, okay? And that exception is the city manager could determine that it doesn't warrant that. And the reason I don't think it warrants a competitive bid is because it's proprietary products. Tyler Technologies owns these. We already own a Tyler Technologies product that we're upgrading. And so that they all integrate with seamless integration, we should stay with Tyler Technologies and buy these 3 particular products. That's my recommendation.
Chief, I did notice in there's about $40,000 in recurring expenses, like annual fees.
Yes.
Is that something that we already have in the budget, recurring software fees, or is that going to be an additional budget item?
It will be an additional budget item because I didn't do the 2024 budget. We weren't this far into those things. I certainly believe that we can absorb that administratively. I think what we do is I want to center all of the technology in the technology fund, right? So we know where it's paid from, we know what's paid from it, and we know how much money we then accumulate into that account and maybe need to transfer things. We do that all the time, right? We have to transfer this and do these other things and shore that up. And that's where I would pay from that at. $5 of every citation written by the police department is attributed and allocated to that particular account, that tech fund. So there is an income source there. These big ticket items, that doesn't keep up with that. So we have to shore that funding up with other sources, but we take from the general fund, these miscellaneous funds, and we can transfer it over. It happens pretty regularly. So yes, they're reoccurring. We did not budget for those. Pretty common in these contracts that you're going to have these service fees. You're getting the service, you're getting the licensing. That's the most predominant expense with these. It's really about the licensing, but we're paying for the full service, which is very, very important on teaching, updating reports, changing reports, doing these things and generating new reports. That's all included in this bundle, if you will, about their service.
And I know when we were speaking about it months ago and talking about the court docket and how it's really sizable for our city our size, and how this might make it more efficient. Does this have an opportunity for folks to pay online before they come in?
Yes, they have some of their own, again, the proprietary pieces, some of their own payment functions, right? That sort of thing. There's a lot of capabilities that we simply don't have for just, we have simple log into this third-party vendor and now pay your fee. This kind of eliminates some of that and offers opportunities to, you need an extension on a case. Our prosecutor does everything remote. There's no office for the prosecutor here. Our judge as well. That's all remote capabilities. This will streamline that. That is very slow process, no matter what the connection is. So because they consolidate the files, it's arranged in a certain way, and there's a lot of that. What would you call online storage, right? That remote storage capabilities, which we need some of it for continuity of service. If our servers fail, we have backup and we have redundancy. I'm going to IT a little bit on here, but we have that. But this offers, if we lose some of that, this other data will be out on the cloud, if you will, that AWS storage, the Amazon type stuff, or the Google, whatever they buy. So that's a part of what we're paying for as well. And I don't like that cloud storage when it comes to police evidence and video things, but this sounds well protected. They do a lot of good with the security, as well as it's part of what they do. And so I think the continuity of service and that whole thing is going to be positive. No. So this has nothing to do with the police department. We already have our own system, and we don't do that. So yeah, no worries. But so the court, just so we're aware, the police RMS is different than the court RMS. There's no video, there's no evidence related to court whatsoever over here. We supply all of the evidence to the court through the police department, through the chain of command and the chain of custody. Okay? So that's kind of, those are separate two things. So that's where we're at. I think those are good questions, and I like the cloud storage in this particular scenario, what we're doing.
Mark, what is suite? Is that the housing of the?
Yeah. So for example, if you were to log into it, it's going to have these kind of apps. Like it will have fund balance, for example, or general ledger, or utilities. And then so that suite of offerings is you push utility billing in one console right in front of you.
Right. Okay.
Utility billing.
All right.
You don't have to go to some other. If you saw today the fund balance, you go on the screen, each one of them is a different app. They're not consolidated together in one console. Does that make sense? So one console will have all these tabs and the functions right in front of you, which is important.
That's good. I'm old school. I didn't understand what that suite meant.
Yeah, no worries.
It means a nice hotel room to me.
Well, yeah.
Are you still IT?
Well, yeah, I think so.
If you got that hat still.
I even offered to go with James and patch a hole or two, but I don't know what I'm doing. He said no. He said stay in your
I
office.
wanted to ask, didn't we approve 100,000 or something just within the last 6 or 8 months for some kind of computer upgrade?
That I explained earlier on our budget amendment. I believe what you're referring to is the $95,000 that had to go from the CARES money.
Right.
It was original CARES money. It was set aside that transferred into the technology fund to pay for the physical servers that we replaced.
And that has been done.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Has been
all
done.
right.
In fact, we just transferred the money now.
No, that was just, it hit me when, we're talking about this. I thought, oh, we just bought a bunch of this. Cool. All right. That's my question.
So Mark, how user friendly is it? It sounds like it's a lot better than what we currently have. I know we have applications at work that are just, they're good, but they're horrible as for the operator. It only really, it takes one person to manage it and get into it because it's so extensive. Is that what this is?
It's a total redesign and upgrade, and it's their most popular financial product in their court as well. That's the one they sell the most of. And it is essentially much better. So for example, you want to make utility billing payments online. So if you did that today, you would have noticed an error that continually went throughout the day until we investigated that one of the services has stopped. And the only way we know that service has stopped is somebody complains. Okay? So what I have to do is log in and restart that service. It's not designed that way. It's a lot more functional, more efficient, more effective, a lot faster. Doesn't take near the physical download onto each computer to use. Doesn't take the server room, that sort of thing. So if you're talking about efficient, effective, much better. It's well enhanced. I would say absolutely yes. We saw it, we demoed it, we were impressed.
So will you have several in your mind? Are you thinking, several people in the office have access to it, or?
Yes, it's user based. So we have, 6 to 10 users, that sort of thing. For example, all the folks in the office, the front office there, use it in one way or the other. Some use utility billing and some use, say, fund balance in some way, the general ledger, these kinds of things. But these are all separate little apps, if you can kind of think of them on your computer screen. This is, we all have a login, right? It's all there in your console. You pick the tab that you're assigned to, security-wise and that sort of thing. So it's not just free for all access.
Yeah.
There'll be layers. But what's more important is our police department, who takes cash, makes receipts, helps with the court take payments, right, is across the way. It's remote compared to over here. That same console will be on that computer, and the receipt will go right into the bank. It'll be already there without having to carry papers, carry cash, that sort of thing. I don't want to disclose too much, but as you can imagine, on court day, there's a lot of transactions, okay? Those are manually done. And I mentioned that generates about $400,000+ a year. Think of that manual, just it's outmoded, outdated. It's very laborsome, and we need to fix that because that's an auditing night.
And this will fix that?
This will fix that, absolutely.
Where do we sign
Both
up?
pieces of it, the court and the court and the financial software. So
Thank you.
What's life expectancy today?
we did
Wow,
25
12
plus years of the
Yeah,
other one.
I know.
That's pretty good though, right? These things, we just have to stay updated, just like anything else. You have to update this. The 5-year life cycle easily, and they're a company, they're large. They've had some problems here and there with certain large things, but not with this particular piece. And every 5 years, there's going to be an update. I almost bet, if not sooner.
But the $40,000 though a year, they're going to continually.
Absolutely.
Updates,
It's part
right.
of your updates, of your firmware,
Yeah.
any adjustments, your report building. We have a company, if you want a new report build, $750 if we don't do it ourselves. So there's all kinds of things like that.
No other questions, we'll consider a motion for approving just a purchase.
Yeah, the acquisition of the software not to exceed $396,121. I promise.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, what he said.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Scott, a second from Councilman Trevor. Will the clerk please call roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Adcock,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malat,
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes.
Now 7B, right?
Now, 7B is the consent agenda item.
I requested that to be pulled off the consent agenda because I want a little bit more time to look at that. And I would like to make some communicative efforts with Bonner Springs and the city council of Bonner Springs to kind of find out what direction they're going to go on that, because it will involve them as well as us. And I did understand that they're in the process of possibly building a new facility on the north end of Bonner, somewhere around the Feldman's or the Renaissance or something. I'd request that this be tabled until at least the next meeting in January.
So you just get some more information and.
Yes, just to collect some more information and talk to some people.
It doesn't hurt. We have a standing mutual aid agreement already.
I'm not against it. I mean, I want to iterate that I'm not against it. I just want to look at it very closely and talk to some other people about it. I appreciate the work that Chief Whittam has done on that. I certainly don't want to slow that process down any, but I feel more comfortable if I know a little bit more about it.
And Mayor, the only comments I'd have, I know you and I have had a conversation with individuals at Bonner Springs, you, the mayor, and I've communicated with the city manager. The indications were, number one, Bonner Springs has an unincorporated area that if they're asked to have responsibility for, they want paid for that, which I totally understand. The city manager did communicate in writing that they were very comfortable with the work product and that sort of thing, and didn't anticipate any obstacles other than ensuring they got paid for their service to an unincorporated area right here in their city. And Mayor, you've had a conversation similar, I believe.
I have, yeah, I spoke with Mayor Harrington about that. And is there anything in particular, just some more time to get some information, or do you want to
Yeah,
stop?
I've been kind of contacting with the incoming mayor of Bonner. And I'd like to talk to 2 or 3 of the council members up there. So
And it's not a time sensitive.
No, there was an indication, and Chief Woodham will verify that they wanted to have this in a predated, I thought one of the documents had a predate, it does, the first day of January 2024. But that date can be amended by us. Mutual aid response, not the automatic aid, but the mutual aid response never goes away. They can ask and we can ask, so that there's no harm there. We have a standing mutual aid agreement with the city of Bonner Springs. They supply ambulance, we supply ambulance. That's been going on. And we know from their structure that they're ramping up their full-time employees who will be assigned to fire and EMS. Therefore, the expectation is we will run there less, and maybe there will be mutual in the mutual aid, in the reciprocation of the services that we provide. So delaying this, Mayor, there's no consequence, quite frankly.
Well, and I do appreciate Chief Woodham's leadership on this. I know it's been a long time coming, but in that same, at the same time, I know that I've asked for things to be tabled before to get more information. I think it's great when we have council wanting to get more information before making a decision. I think that's always a good thing to do if we are able to do that. And so, Garrett, did you want to make a specific motion?
Does it need a motion? Make a motion to table the automatic dispatch agreement until the next meeting in January.
Mayor, is there any staff direction? You want research or anything?
I think most of it is what I want to do on my own.
Okay.
Talk around.
Well, and I think I'd encourage council, if you have questions, to let Chief Woodham know. I know we've had a little bit of time to do that, and so that way we're sure when we come back to have our questions resolved and communicated, and that way we can move forward if everybody's comfortable. Do we have a second?
No, second.
We have a motion from Councilman Malat and a second from Councilman Bishop. We'll look for, please call roll.
Scott,
No.
Adcox,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malat,
Yes.
Schrader.
No.
Motion passed.
Okay. So we're gonna move forward. We, again, that's just tabling it. It's not anything negative on that, just tabling it, get some more information.
Take your
We're
time.
plan to move it forward at our next meeting coming up. Moving forward to item number 8, which is the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Practicing brevity, I hope. We're all learning. What I have for you, though, is a reminder that do not leave until you've signed the budget amendment document that we have to file with the clerk's office county. I will be meeting tomorrow in this room, myself or other staff, about the upgrade for this room. We've had complaints, a couple of them come informally, about the ability to hear and interact. And we want people, whether they're here or out there, to be informed and be able to hear what's going on and that sort of thing. So we're going to have a little bit of investment. It will not be the same company because I'm under the impression they don't answer the phone, they don't answer emails, which I used to reach out to them pretty easy. They did other projects for us, but they're not doing it. They must be out of business. I have a recommendation from Bonner Springs who had a successful experience with a company out of Raytown, Missouri, unfortunately. But they will be here to inspect, estimate, and give us a quote about how to enhance this and what that would cost. If you do know, like an audio visual company that might be more local, I've reached out, but nobody really knows. The other one also was out of business. So if you know anybody, I would sure welcome some input on that as well.
Cytec,
Okay.
Cyteck, I believe.
Tech, okay. And are they Wyco or are they Joco? Or are they
I believe they are. I
Okay.
believe one account.
close by? Okay, excellent. Yeah, if we can do business more local, I'd like to, but
Yeah.
you know, again, Bonner Springs had an audiovisual upgrade and they use this particular company. So they'll be here tomorrow to inspect. So we're making progress on that. So we will not meet till next year. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I've enjoyed this almost 6 months. If I've aged 2 years, I've aged 2 years. Thank you for support on the software business. I know I'm an IT guy, but this business of what the way we're doing business is we've got to move forward. And I keep thinking that in my mind, forward to Edwardsville. We just got to start thinking those kinds of things. No matter what happens in the future, these things are necessary, and that's we've been very busy. I've been trying. Actually, I could have written you another 2 pages in my last report to you. I try not to. It's hard to read as it is. I can't even read it. So I'll keep that some brevity, but I'll keep doing that through the end of the year. We have our stay interviews, these department heads, and thanks to Tim Whittam, who's going to step up and help us with the public works. What we're talking about stay interviews, and the mayor and I bounced this idea off, and I appreciate that. But it's about not an exit interview, because we have people leaving all the time. And you know how willing they are to get an exit interview? Right? But we want to know when you're here, let's talk to you about what it is that we can offer and what it is we're giving you right now that makes it a satisfactory, a good culture, a good place to work. And so we're really promoting that. We have a process map. We have everything. The department heads know. But Tim Whittam's going to help us out with the public works while we're in the interim period there. And we're going to be working on the administration folks as well. Chantal is hearing about this now. But we'll be helping her as well. But we want to know what it is in these stay interviews that we can do these other things. And it's not just about money. You'll be surprised. There's lots of other things that we can be doing, and we're going to try hard to do those things. It's already hard to recruit. If we have people walking out the door, it just makes us that one step less of being forward Edwardsville kind of thing. And so that's what we're doing. We'll have a report for you. On the 29th of December, the accounting manager and I are doing nothing but running the revenue reports and the expenditure reports. I've been giving you those kind of spreadsheet snippets of how I think we're performing. One you looked at and said, oh my goodness, we're at 14%. And then when you look at it, it's 18%. It's so sporadic these last 2 months of how we were expected to spend 22% of our expenditures November, December, and receive 11% only of our revenue. Okay. So it's not as easy as dividing, okay, you've 11 months of expenditures, divide it by 11 months, right? Then factor it into 12. It's not that easy. The revenue is even worse. There are 2 periods of time when we get a spike in our revenue, January and the end of June. These are big things, right? And that's because property tax distribution, that sort of thing. So what really varies is our fees and fines, that sort of thing. And then we have the county use and the sales tax, that comes in. And those are usually monthly. Sometimes you're like, oh my goodness, we're doing really well. And you say, well, what was last year like? That's the only really reference we have. And then it's $15,000 less or $15,000 more. So what we're doing on December 29th is we're going to run those records, because beyond that, except for the expenditures, about plus 3%, we get no more revenue attributed to the 2023 budget. Because after that, we go into January, any money received January 1 or after is attributed to 2024. So that's what we're going to try to do, is really hone down. We don't have a lot of confidence, but we're better at the reporting. We're better at what's moved around and that sort of thing. So we can give you a firm idea, more firm, have more confidence in where we're going to land regarding our revenue versus our budgeted and or real expenditures, because that's what's important in the cash reserves percentage. That's the absolute math. And so what we hope to do is be over 15%. What we hope not to do is be under that 14%. Because moving forward, it's about our bond rating, our credit, as you all have been experienced with. And we really want to do some things to fix that. And therefore, 2024, each department head and I, in the next few weeks, we're going to go over that 2024 budget. I didn't put that budget together. All I can do is look at spreadsheets and numbers. I want to talk to them about these exact numbers, how we're doing it, and have a plan, whether that's before the end of January, is exactly how the expenditures are going to go and that sort of thing. I mentioned to you, expenditure-wise, we need to better track where our expenditures are in these special funds, for example. And I mentioned that capital municipal equipment fund that we created, and all of our vehicle purchases, that's where that needs to go. We're making payments in 3 and 4 different places. It's really hard to track. If you're not the department head, you don't really know where that money came from or where it's being expended, that sort of thing. But in one line item, we'll put everything there. What you have to do to fund that is fund those amounts of the payments that we're making and or the one-time payments that we'll make to buy, say, for example, one truck. There was a mention about the public works truck. Why don't we just pay for that in cash? And we can do that as long as the money is properly transferred into that account. So those are kind of the goals in the next 4-5 weeks to get some of these things wrapped up and have a better report for you by the 29th to include stay interviews, what our employees are saying, our finances, and some of these policies related to how we're going to do business no matter what moving 2024. Unless you tell me different. There you go. I know it was a little long-winded, sorry.
No problem. We're gonna move on to council in their comments, but before we do that, and then we'll come back to council comments here in a minute. I just wanted to take a moment and honor Councilman Scott, who's been with us. We are so thankful for the time he served with us here on the city council. This is a thankless position, and it takes a lot of just effort, a lot of time, sacrificing family time to be here and serve our community. And so I just, as a governing body, we wanted to take a moment and just thank you, Councilman Scott, for your time with us. And if we want, we can just all come out here to the front and we'll thank you.
That wasn't necessary.
Yes.
You didn't get dressed up for nothing. Gather in tight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. You want the sleeve? You want the protective sleeve? Yeah.
I get a little unsteady.
We'll see. Yeah, somebody hang on to when you're walking.
We're gonna move on to council comments. Councilman Adcox. I don't have any. Okay. Councilman Bishop?
I just want to have everybody be really safe on New Year's. It's a crazy night.
Stay home.
Yeah,
Like me.
that's amateur hour.
Councilman Moore?
I do have a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. I know it's getting late, people get tired of me talking, I'm sure, but you mentioned in one of your blurbs to us about the possibility of some property being dedicated to Edwardsville for public works down around the Mars property.
Yes.
That would be awesome if you could make that work.
Yeah, we're certainly trying.
I'm still of the impression that that's the place that ought to be. And then considering on the east side of the KDOT, I didn't go look at that property, but I think that's a pretty good thing to be looking at down there, so. And if it could be dedicated, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, trying to work those kinds of things into some of these deals, as I mentioned in economic development. Again, these are 50,000 foot presentations, right? These guys are like, hey, what do you think about this? And then I would say, where's your retail? And oh, by the way, this happens to be an area where our comprehensive plan, if you look on what we did with the Kaw Valley Improvement District or Incentive District, that Commerce Center has a public works building south of where it was originally proposed, at least the land acquisition, right? So it's south of there under the Mars property, and it's in the flood way. However, it doesn't really impact the city when it comes to building there. It's close to it, right, Bradley? Am I right? It's right, just kind of tight to that floodway, and they can't build on there. There's not room to do other things. And so I proposed, here's the original plan. This would be nice to have it there.
So I appreciate the efforts on that because something really needs to be done on that.
Yes, sir.
And then I noticed that when we were at the mayor's Christmas tree lighting, it's very dark. And I think I mentioned it to you. We need some traffic with some street lights over there. Walking from this parking lot over to that, I mean, it was dark as heck. I think we need to get some kind of lighting over there.
We'd certainly have to make it on our dedicated.
Yeah. Well, I think that, we need to because I could see somebody tripping and getting hurt. The other thing I was going to mention was I'm not going to let this go on city facilities. And I know the public, that's a contentious thing to bring up. But since there's, we've got the report here from you that the town center is no update on what's going on, that nothing's happening on that. We've already got a considerable amount of money invested in that. And what my proposal would be, and maybe for us to think about, and I might get shot down on this, but why don't we just maybe put a focus on police station and get these people out of a trailer that's been there for 10 years, but it's been in service for around 20 years. Let's get our police department in a building that they can be proud of, that could probably help with your stay interviews and maybe the recruitment aspect of that. Why can't we maybe put the city hall facility on the back burner, maybe put the fire station on the back burner, and let's get them out of a trailer and give them something proud to work out of and something proud for our community to have down here.
And I appreciate the perspective. I think I agree with the mayor who decided that was in the best interest, because what staff is working on this? This is a very big project, and we have these other things, transition and things. So I totally supported that, putting it on pause. We didn't say stop. We just said, hey, let's put it on pause. We're not spending any more money, and we've spent the money not on a frivolous effort. The work is there, and they're ready to continue that as soon as we're ready. And I just don't think that we're in a position today. Turn of the year, maybe, yeah. But there's so much house cleaning to do besides adding a potentially $20+ million project right now. We have great ideas, and I think there are ideas that will.
Couldn't you do a police station for less than 20 million? Maybe,
well, absolutely,
maybe
you could.
Just look at it from some different eyes, and maybe try and do a piece here and a piece here and a piece here, and instead of trying to do the whole thing all at once. I just think that the city deserves this, and I think that our police department deserves it. I think all our employees deserve to have facilities
Well, I think so.
to work out of that they can be proud and comfortable in.
I understood that
That's
it's
my
not a
perspective
stoppage or a
on it.
denial of it. I think
Yeah.
and I agree, there's so much on our plate, and that may turn the, okay. But here's what I think. If you're asking whether we should support building one building over the rest of it, I say no, not even the police department.
Yeah.
I just don't think that that's economically a good decision.
Okay. That's what I have to say.
Yes, sir.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Councilman Shriver?
I want to take this time to thank Councilmember Scott as well. A lot of knowledge, a lot of good ideas, a lot of participation. You were integral in putting together our council retreat. You supplied your workplace, made that all happen, and it was a really good retreat. It was really, 2 or 3 people that aren't here that. So those are kind of good to have maybe once a year. Something we might put on the schedule for next year. We'll have some new staff. Like to thank, I think I tried to thank a lot of people, the mayor's Christmas tree lighting. It's come so far. I've been on the Parks and Recs committee for over 20 years. And the Parks and Recs board, we used to physically go outside and put the tree up. It could be 10 below, but this is how far it's come. And it's from the effort from most employees here at City Hall, the fire, police departments, everybody, from the planning, from the popcorn to Santa Claus, to everybody that had part in that. And it's a lot of people, and it's a lot to put together. So I want to thank everybody. Sometimes probably all the work, you don't get much thanks, but that was a lot of work for all those kids to be so happy that night. And a community event like that it was well respected. Very nice. I want to thank Chief Whittam for the fire department mitigation fee. Fantastic. It's only going to benefit Edwardsville and the residents. So thank you so much for that, all your hard work. Wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Councilman Scott?
Well, I just want to thank everybody too for putting up with me, and it's really awesome. I've learned a lot too, being up here and working with everybody. It just it's always good to challenge yourself and to put yourself out there and to learn. it's always good to learn every day. That's our goal. But Mark, you've done a great job, with what you've had to do and overcome. And then, coming into the interim position, you just know you've done a great job. I thought Mike Webb did a great job, but you really added a lot of different things to the process, and just, you went above and beyond, and the information that you gave us from the get-go was incredible. Well received, and just, I can't say enough. Just, I appreciate everything that you've done, and Chief Witham, just great job as always, and look forward to hearing more good things from your end of things and getting things done. And even though this is my last meeting and I'm not, on the city council officially anymore, just don't, if anybody needs anything from me, you know how to get a hold of me. Don't throw out my phone number or my email, but reach out to me if you need anything from me. I'll be glad to help out. And if you allow me, I'll still be down here for city cleanup and be part of the city however I can. But I definitely appreciate everybody's patience and, again, their friendship over the years, and look forward to seeing great things from this city council and from staff. So keep working hard, keep making our city, incredible place to live and safe place. So thank you guys.
Okay, we'll keep it brief. Thank you again, everybody, for your work this year. This is our last meeting of the year, so about to wind down 2023. The mayor's Christmas tree lighting was, I'm a little bit partial, but I think the best one yet. We had our police department provided a Christmas train for the kids, and that was a huge hit. We had a lion, and kids were riding the train all night long. We had participation from Edwardsville Elementary Choir, from the Bonner Springs Marching Band, drum line, Bonner Springs Choir singing Christmas carols for us. We had hands on deck from every department at City Hall. Staff gave hours and hours to our community to make this a great event. So thank you all so much for being a part. The community just had great things to say. It was a really good event and a great way to end the year. Thank you again, Councilman Scott, for your great service to our community. We so appreciate you. And that'll wrap us up for the year. Everybody have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Go Chiefs.
You got that box there,
I
buddy.
need to fire a coach.